Hello and welcome to the NBA DFS on the RotoRadar podcast. My name is Joshua Riemer. I'm joined by none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Jared Block. Jared, how are you doing on this fine Tuesday afternoon, sir?
Doing good, man. At the office early this morning and have had, a good 4 or 5 hours of research under our belts for this Tuesday 10 game slate. We don't normally get huge slates like this on Tuesday, but it does seem to be because of the in-season tournament. So stoked about that. Just a ton of injuries today to break down, which thankfully we'll be able to do that on this show. Hopefully there aren't very many game times, but a few big ones already out today.
Yeah, man, definitely going to be a big one. We got the Trae Young news. We got a ton of other news that we're going to be covering throughout the show. It's going to be a good time. I'm happy we have these types of slates. This is like the perfect middle ground right now. Like 11 games is all right, but like obviously we like around like 5 to 9 is usually our sweet spot, but 4 game slates just suck. And that was kind
Mhm.
of encapsulated last night. I think we had a lot of good calls. We hit our Bobby Portis call, which was a really good one. Kobe White did really well. We had a lot of good calls yesterday, and some things just didn't come together at the end of it. And sometimes that's just how it is.
Exactly. Tons of options to talk about today, and a lot of things that are already baked in. So if you're listening and you have interest in Atlanta, you have interest in Miami, you have interest in some other spots we'll talk about, a lot of these prices and numbers and stuff are already baked into things like Underdog and PrizePicks, and we'll see if we can. It's going to be a lot of. I think that the moral, or not the moral, the continuous thing that we say today is going to be great play on FanDuel, DraftKings. Let's just stay away on Underdog and PrizePicks.
For sure. All right, let's get into this thing, man. Let's start talking about it. For those who don't know how this happens, if you're coming over here for the first time, what we do is we go game by game, breaking down each game from a FanDuel and DraftKings perspective, talking about what plays we like, talking about which value plays we like, and what superstars we like. Then after that, we head over to Underdog and Prize Picks, talk about some of our favorite props from that game or pick 'em options from that game, and then we go game by game and roll through the whole thing. So Jared informed me before the show that we are on a little bit of a time crunch because of some meetings that we have this afternoon. We're going to do our best to get through this one efficiently and quickly. So let's do exactly that, Jared. Let's get into this. First game up is going to be the Pacers facing off against the 76ers. For injuries in this game, we currently don't have much. We are waiting on Embiid news, and that seems like the big thing that, kind of is going to dictate what happens in this game because him being questionable is huge. Obviously, not only does it impact what this 76ers team is able to bring to the table in terms of their offense and production, I think it also really kind of makes it easier to digest this game, staying a little bit closer and staying really competitive and getting a little bit faster pace. Embiid
Right.
being out, them not having that big man at the center position like Embiid allows Philly to pace things up, kind of run at Tyrese Maxey's pace. And if that's the case, that could be huge for this 76ers team. So let's start off with some hypotheticals here for this 76ers team. If Embiid is out, Maxey becomes I know he's 10K, but I would still say pretty close to a must play at this point
Yep.
with how much usage he would absorb.
Mhm.
Tobias Harris would become a very good play. We're already seeing him being really efficient so far this season. I mean, I think he's poised to have one of the better seasons he's had with the 76ers so far
Yep.
without James Harden there to kind of swallow up that usage. And then there's obviously some other key pieces on this team that'll also get some big usage alongside, Kelly Oubre being out too and
Mhm.
Batum being out due to personal injury. So like lots of stuff to talk about on the 76ers side. Break it down for me. What do you got here?
Yeah, you have interest to start already. Just regardless of Embiid playing, I'll get to that in a second. But no Batum, who was starting in place of Oubre, who obviously will be out after getting hit by a car, which is so terrible news there.
Crazy.
Um, yeah, just crazy. I think that just regardless if Embiid's sitting or not, you still have a tremendous spot for Tobias Harris. I think that D'Anthony Melton potentially is a candidate to talk about for plenty of options here. And I don't care if Tyrese is 10K. I think he deserves it. I think the markets have finally caught up with it. And on DraftKings at 8,900, I think that he is a clear lock and load type of situation. Uh, I know where you don't throw that term out often, but I think regardless of Embiid, you're still playing Maxey on DraftKings today. And you kind of just have to wait and see on how the rest of this lineup shakes out, because you do want everything that's available here. The Sixers Huge pace up and play spot, one of the biggest on the slate. So a lot to like here. And considering that the spread is within 5 points, I actually think that would lean towards Embiid being more of a questionable, doubtful situation.
I would tend to agree, man. I was kind of thinking the same thing. I think with Embiid, this one gets up to like 7, 7.5, even potentially 8. It
Yeah.
would be a different situation if we weren't in Philly for this one, but with it being in Philly, I could very easily see this being like a 7.5 or an 8 with Embiid, and without him, falls more in line with where that 5 is. This opened
Hmm.
at 6.5 too, so like we're seeing a lot of movement towards the Pacers, which just
Right.
indicates more that Embiid might be closer to that doubtful tag than actually that questionable tag. We'll have to wait and see. Luckily, this is news that we'll know before slate locks, which is always something that we're grateful for. I know,
Hmm.
and we'll kind of be able to react from there. That's kind of the beauty of this show. We're able to give you guys some of the stuff that we like, but to really get all of it, you have to be behind the paywall. So. Really like this 76ers side. I think you obviously have to play them. It's a huge pace up spot against not a very good defense. And I think there's just a ton of upside, man.
Yeah, I think you have to have at least two pieces of the Sixers today. Gotta wait. Thankfully we'll have all this news at the 7 p.m. window, and we go from there. And I think that if Embiid's out, I think your autos are Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris. I think you can play Harris regardless if Embiid's in. Uh, I don't think I would play Maxey and Embiid in cash in the same build though. That's where I'd stop and draw the line.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I wouldn't be double paying up here. I think that's perfectly fine. I think you should be having two Pacers most likely. Um, I think I fall in line with everything you just said. I mean, we got to remember that, like, regardless of what happens with Embiid or not, this is the, I think, second highest
Yep,
live total that we have today, or first
could be the
highest.
highest.
I'm looking right now. The Thunder are ahead of them by 1.5. So like, you have a huge total here. You got to get exposure. Plenty of ways to do it. We just kind of got to wait until we get the Embiid news. On the other side, let's talk about the Pacers a little bit. If you're ready to move over there.
Yeah, I think so. This is a little bit more dependent on Embiid stuff.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think that without Embiid, this team does take a pretty big fall when it comes to their defense. And so, because you put Paul Reed in there at the center position, most likely is what we're
Hmm.
expecting. Um, they lose their one of their better defenders, and so how are you handling this? How it feels like you should have a piece of this Pacers team. I when they're fully healthy, I'm just always confused on who exactly you go to.
Yeah, well, number one, I think pace would just go up tremendously. And again, I don't think that I would play Halliburton over Maxi, but it would put Halliburton a lot more in play. Miles Turner becomes a pretty good play. But do you really want to pay almost 8K for that spot? I don't know. It gets more intriguing with him beat out, but I think this is truly just a wait and see situation. Nothing sticks out in cash at the moment because at the moment, I think that we kind of just have to say that we expect Joel Embiid to play, barring any setbacks here. So that's how we always bet on the known, and right now the known is that Embiid is just in until further notice. So with that
Yeah.
said, I don't think we can play Pacers in cash at this time.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely get behind that. Uh, Anything else to talk about in this game? I mean, we kind of just got to wait for news, but this is definitely a good game. It's definitely one that you should have exposure to, and you should be getting as many guys as possible if you can from this game because it's a great game environment. It's a close
Yeah.
spread. It should be electric.
Absolutely. I'm more excited about Tyrese Halliburton on Underdog than I am playing him on FanDuel or DraftKings today.
For sure. I can definitely agree with that. All right. Let's move over to prize picks and underdog and let's talk about some pick'em options that you like and I like. Let's start on this Pacer side. What do you like here? Because I know you just mentioned Halliburton, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if Embiid is out, I think that, Halliburton's points probably creep up. The points assists probably creep up. A driving guard without one of the better perimeter or one of the better interior centers, I think that you probably just hammer the points. Hammer the points either way. I think 21.5 is completely fine. I think assists is in his realm here. If it was anywhere up north of like 12.5, 13, I'd probably stay away from the assists. But since it's at 11.5, I think it's completely fine. And would be very curious to play both Halliburton and Maxi fantasy point stuff. I think that's completely in play.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely interested in the fantasy point stuff. I don't think we have anything on that. I know we don't have it on Underdog. I don't think we have it yet on Prize Picks either. We have Embiid at 57. You're not going to get a maxi number until we find out. Or no, you do have a maxi number at 47. What do you think about that maxi number at 47 fantasy score?
Accurate. Uh,
I'd
if
agree.
Embiid is out, then I think either way, he tremendously has the ability to hit this, and you would need it for if you're rostering him at that price tag. So I would still be pretty bullish on things. And you got to remember, like, not having Oubre in the starting lineup takes away 15 shots. Like he was definitely way more active in that department. So I can get behind Maxi and Harris at this time.
For sure. I can get behind it. All right.
Ooh,
Anything else
breaking
in.
news! Breaking
Oh,
news!
go for it.
Yeah, since we're kind
Ooh.
of at the end of this one, right? Do you have
Yeah.
anything else you
Well,
really want to say?
no, we can move on. But first, let's talk about this breaking news.
Yeah, breaking news. According to Underdog NBA, Steph Curry ruled out for the Warriors tonight.
Man, we'll get to it more when we get into that game. I'll just say like initial thoughts is that like that team is really predicated around Steph right now.
Yeah.
Go take Timberwolves spread if you can. I think they get blown out, but we'll talk about it when we get there for sure. But next up, let's talk about this next game, which is going to be the Miami Heat facing off against the Charlotte Hornets. Currently, we have the Heat at 5 point favorites on the road here. Over under is set at 222 and a half. Let's talk about this Heat side first. Obviously, still dealing with their share of injuries, with Tyler Hero still being out, and that's basically it. I mean, they have Caleb Martin, but that doesn't really mean much. What do we think about this team going up against a Charlotte team that's really bad on defense? So, like, there has to be some level of interest here. I'm just not sure. I know the spread doesn't indicate it, so I guess I'm a little bit hesitant to say this, but like I feel like this game could blow out. I feel like the Heat could take a convincing leading and really
Yeah.
get there.
One of my
But
favorite spreads of the day, actually.
yeah, I can buy into it. I think that if we're going with a 5 point spread, which is what Vegas currently has it at, I'd say you have to play pieces from this Heat team. It's a pace up spot. It's against a great deep, or it's against a very very bad defense, worse in the league right now when it comes to defensive rating. I would say Lowry's a go, especially off of a day off of rest. I think Bam would be a really good option as well. I could just see a lot of guys end up hitting here.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a massive pace up spot for Miami. You get a bottom 10 team in pace in the Heat, taking out a top 5 team in pace in Charlotte. So you got to like what you have there. And obviously, injuries to Tyler Hero are going to basically launch a lot of people forward here. I think Lowry, like you said, is a pretty good candidate. I was a little bit upset about some of the things that he's done against Memphis. I understand that point, but like to some of these other spots where he just didn't show up, even with some of these guys sitting, it was kind of concerning. But I do like, and again, you're gonna get now 2 or 3 games without Hero to kind of take away some of the upside here. But Hawkes, Haywood Highsmith, not as much with Jimmy back, but mainly Hawkes or Robinson. And then I really do like the Bam spot, but his price is getting out of control too.
Price is getting out of control. He has paid it off in each of the last 5 or 4, though. Been playing really, really well without Tyler Hero. So, I mean,
Yep.
you take that into account. You take in triple double factor. Like, I like
Yep.
the Bam spot. I know you can't necessarily pay for it today. I think there's other guys that kind of draw a priority over him, but like
Hmm.
it's a good spot, man. Maybe it's more of a pickup spot than anything else because
Yeah,
I
it is.
think rebounds are really solid for him right now, and everything's really solid for him. So like, I think the upside is certainly there. It's just a question of can you get there price tag wise, and I don't think you can. I think the main part I like here is like Kyle Lowry, like continuing to play 30 minutes, asked to step up in this offense without Tyler Hero in a fantastic matchup against a guard position that's not very good. There's a ton of upside here for Kyle, and I think the spot is really solid for him. So, like, if I'm leaning anywhere, it's probably going to be with Kyle Lowry here.
Yeah, I like Lowry. Don't get me wrong. I also think that on FanDuel these guys are a little bit more inflated in price, whereas on DraftKings, for example, Jaime Jaquez is 4,500. Now I know that like maybe he's not a slam dunk to start, but I still think that he's very solid.
Yeah, I can definitely get behind him being a very, very solid. Do we have any thoughts about Haywood Smith? I mean, I know really, really disappointing performance against San Antonio, but 4,700, the guy's going to play probably around 25 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Really consistent production in that Atlanta and Memphis game and getting such a good matchup. Like I'm tempted to say Haywood Smith's a really good candidate for some savings today.
Yeah, I mean, Highsmith is definitely in consideration. We'll see if he's going to be the guy that's starting in this, and he has been starting even when Hero was in the lineup. The Atlanta game, definitely best performance because no Jimmy Butler. Memphis had a good performance. Jimmy also played in that game. So I think the something that we just haven't brought up yet is the fact that Jimmy Butler has just not taken advantage of injury situations, and he's just not hitting anything consistently. So he's out of play for me today.
For sure. All right, let's talk about the other side. If you're ready to go over there and talk about this Charlotte team.
Yeah, lots of game time stuff.
Yep, for sure. All right. This side, like you mentioned, lots of game time stuff. Gordon Hayward currently questionable. Brandon Miller questionable. We know that Terry Rozier and Miles Bridges are out as well. There could be a lot of guys out. The spread would make me lean that not a lot of guys will be out here. That most of
Hmm.
these guys will end up playing. But what are your thoughts? Because I mean, it's a tough matchup overall. I don't think I can see anyone really get in there that I'd really want a lot of exposure to. But um, anyone that you really like here?
Yeah, I think that Gordon Hayward is going to play based on injury news, and Brandon Miller is going to sit because he's the one that rolled his ankle on Sunday, and I just don't think that that is something that they're interested in rolling him out with that. So again, that's hypothetical, but based on news and some shoot around stuff, I would tend to think that that's the way things shake out today. But when it comes to playing against Miami, I just don't really think that there's a need to go here.
I will say, if Brandon Miller's out, man, like there's only so many guys that can fill this role because of their already limited depth. With Bridges being out, Terry being out, Frankie N being out, James Booknight, Cody Martin, like you don't
You're
really
right.
have a lot of
You're right.
backup situations. So like a min price player is gonna find his way into the starting lineup if Brandon Miller ends up sitting. Like Bryce
Yeah.
McGowan's could be there, Leaky Black could be
Oh,
there.
McGowan.
I think if they play though, like you have to have interest. Like you have to play one of these guys because of their price tag alone.
Sure. Man, that is gross, but I do agree with you.
Bryce McGowan's probably the guy too. Like the points per minute are super low right now, but like if he gets 30 plus, there's not many scenarios where he doesn't pay off a $3,600 price tag.
I agree. I just hope that this situation resolves itself before 6:30.
I hope Miller ends up playing, honestly. I hope everyone plays to make this game a little bit more interesting. I feel a lot
Hmm.
better about taking Miami guys if everyone ends up playing. Um, Also, Miles Bridges is going to be off suspension after today's game, so that'll be fun to watch. We got some coach talk about how he's going to play a really big role once he gets back, so should be interesting.
All right, let's move on.
Uh, Anything else in this one? If not, let's move over to Prize Picks. Talk about some pick'em options and over on Underdog as well.
Just tough situations. Mark Williams in a tough spot. I mean, maybe I could actually get more into PJ Washington today, but I'm not going to play Mark Williams here. I probably won't even touch anything on Charlotte unless we find out something where Miller or Hayward sit.
I think if there's anything I'd like, it's probably going to be Washington, but that's about it. Um,
Miami. Oh yeah, Washington. Sorry, all over the
yeah,
place right now.
yeah, for sure. Let's talk about the pick'em stuff. Like I said, I'm really interested in a Bam number, man. I think he continually gets here. You hit him at 44 fantasy score. I think that is like entirely too low. I think that is probably
Yeah,
a lot, way too low. So I really like the Bam stuff at 44 fantasy score. What do you like here?
yeah, we played it and it crushed over the weekend. It was a no-brainer. I think you just go right back to that spot today. If the spread is as close as it is, I don't see how Bam doesn't go for 50 in this spot. So I like that. I also like 34 and a half points rebounds here. And then as far as any other heat numbers go, I just don't think you have to go there. But I don't mind Jaime Jaquez points at 8.5.
I can get behind Jaime Jaquez. I can get behind Haywood Smith at Haywood Highsmith at 18 fantasy score. if he plays 30 minutes, he's hitting it, man. Like that's a ridiculous. Isn't that a ridiculously low fantasy score? I'm
Yeah,
curious. I don't think
I
I
think it's
pick
a
him
little bit
for.
dependent on Josh Richardson potentially, but Highsmith has been starting and still been able to hit these.
They're 5-0 when he starts too. Like they've been very consistent when he starts. He's not necessarily a big shooting guy or anything, but I think he provides a good defensive piece at that forward position for them. Um, I think 18's way too low. I think that's a number I totally would buy into here. Um, Other side, what do we like from the Charlotte team? Nothing. I think we can safely say that there's not much here.
No, I think that you just play the guys on Miami. The only thing I'd say is like if Hayward is good to go, then I don't really see many ways that the usage goes in other places. So I think he's again another everything at this point though is just kind of you've already gotten all of the meat on the bone there with that. So I'm probably going to stay off. But if it was under 35 fantasy, I would take it.
For sure. All right. Let's talk about this next game, Jared, if you're ready to move on.
Yep, ready.
Let's do it. Next game up is going to be the Hawks facing off against the Pistons. Currently, the Hawks come in as 3-point favorite, or sorry, 4.5 point favorites. Over under is set at 225.5. Let's talk about this Hawks team first. Big news here. Trae Young is going to be out for personal reasons. We kind of got this, we got keyed in on this yesterday that he was going to be questionable. We got the news this morning that he's going to be out. It's the DeJounte Murray show, man. I mean, it's
Yep.
what we always look forward to. We get it like 5 times a season, it feels like, where Trae Young is out and we get DeJounte Murray running kind of similar to what he ran with the Spurs way back in the day. It's a great matchup as well. Pistons are fourth worst team in the NBA against point guards when it comes to fantasy points allowed. Lock and load. I don't think there's any reason to be difficult about this one.
Right, and that's why some things just don't work out when you get guys that are above 8K today. Like we would love to play Bam, love the spot, think that it's a great play on Underdog and Prize Picks, but when you get Tyrese Maxey and DeJounte Murray in here, I mean, things start to go away very quickly, and these are easily the top two plays on the slate.
Yeah, without a doubt, definitely the top two plays on the slate. It's hard to ignore. What else do we like? Because it has to be more than that, right? Like, I mean, this Hawks team is
Mm-hmm.
losing one of their biggest usage guys that they have. There's more people that are going to get this usage. Who do you think it's going to be?
I like this game a lot for a variety of reasons on both sides. I think this can be very competitive. I actually have Detroit winning this game when all said and done. One of my sharper calls of the day, I think, hopefully. We've just seen Atlanta kind of just, they're just trying to figure it out without Trey. And I guess they're just trying to figure it out in general. But I think that we can say that Jalen Johnson can take a step forward in this spot. I also like Clint Capella here a lot without Jalen Duren on the other side. And something that I'll bring up, might as well just get it out of the way now, though. I think that he's not only a great play on FanDuel and DraftKings, but Underdog. I mean, he's cleared his points, rebounds, and assists number. Clint Capella has in every single game that Trae Young has been out last year, except for one, which was 5 games. So he went 4 out of 5 there. And against some really, really tough defenses, like Denver was uh, twice on that calendar last year. So getting Detroit without Duren, I think, is a really solid spot for both Capella and Okongwu. So there's a lot to like here. I think you can play 2 Atlanta guys in cash.
Yeah, I would fall. I would agree with the two Atlanta guys. You're right. This Pistons team has been struggling against the center position, whether it be Duran or it be anyone else. I like this Capella spot too. I can certainly get behind it. I think it's a solid center play for sure. Um, don't mind taking a chance on whoever's in the starting lineup, man. I mean, Sadiq, Jalen Johnson, someone's going to
Yep.
have to fill in here.
Hmm.
I don't think it's going to be Bogdan necessarily because they like using him as a sixth man.
They do.
So whoever comes in at shooting guard to fill in that role is most likely going to be a pretty big guy. Like it's most likely going to be a forward more so than a shooting guard. So like
Right.
I I think Bay has a good opportunity to succeed if he gets in there. I think that, Jalen Johnson can do his thing as well. So there's definitely upside here.
I think it probably will be Bay just because they've already started Jalen Johnson and Hunter. And I guess it was in question. I don't know, maybe not in question, but there was some coach speak last week where Quinn Snyder said that Jalen Johnson was going to remain in the starting lineup. I don't know if there was ever a question as to why, but
He's
I do
playing
think
shitty
that,
defense. He's like one of the
yeah,
worst
okay.
defenders in the league right now.
I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, you're right. He's also been one of their more consistent offensive players too. So I guess we'll see. But I was just saying that all to say I think that kind of just points to Bay, as you were alluding to start today. So they're going to start three wings, which could be interesting. But I think that's the way that they have to approach things today.
Yeah, for sure. If they don't start Bay and they do end up starting Bogdanovich, I will reiterate the point that it helps Bay still. Getting
Sure.
Bogdanovich off of the second team and
Hmm.
getting Bay into it would be massive for him. He would have a huge role with that second team. All right, let's talk about the Pistons a little bit. You said you like them. They have a lot of injuries right now. Jalen Duren out. And then obviously the usual suspects here: Joe Harris, Bojan Bogdanovich, Monte Morris, Isaiah Livers, all injured for a while here. There's going to be some good matchups. There's going to be some bad matchups. I think DeJounte getting pure coverage of Cade is going to hurt him a little bit. But I know there's going to be some guys that end up thriving, and I think they're kind of all over the floor. So who do you like here?
Yeah, my number one candidate tonight is going to be Isaiah Stewart. I think you can play him at power forward and feel really good about that. We just talked about the Jalen Johnson situation. Now he'll go back and forth playing the 4 and the 5 today, but I would kind of think that they would play Bagley enough here to say that he's going to be in a spot where he can succeed. And when Duran's off the court, we've just seen Stewart be a plug and play type of guy, and I think that continues today. Um, and I think that when you put in, like, you have a healthy Burks and Jaden Ivey now that combine to play around 30-35 minutes, and that's going to take away some stuff just in general from the 2 and 3s on this team. I think Oscar Thompson is still a fine play. I would expect him to draw the DeAndre Hunter matchup, which is not ideal, but give me your thoughts on Detroit. I think I'm just here for Isaiah Stewart, and that's it.
I'd rather have DeAndre Hunter guarding him than like a guy like DeJounte or something. Like I think the All-Star stuff is
Sure.
really good, honestly. I like the spot. I think he continues to perform really well. I think this kind of leaves them in a spot where they're gonna have to sub in a guy who's not really meant to guard this quick of a guard and this
Hmm.
quick of a NBA player, and that could really kill them. So I like the All-Star spot. I think he continues to exceed this stuff and continues to be a rebounding monster as well.
Yeah, so I guess, how do you view Stewart? How do you view Can you spend $7,500 on Thompson? Like, that's kind of the decisions you have to
No,
make here.
No, I think it's more of a pickup thing than anything else. We'll talk about that when we get there. I definitely don't mind Stewart. It's just like it feels like there might be better plays out there today than to go to the Stewart
Sure.
spot. Like at the end of the day, I think going to the other side and going to Clint Capella is probably better for your center position. So like I don't know. I don't mind the Stewart spot, but I think you have better options elsewhere on this massive slate.
There are probably better point per dollar plays. I just look back to a performance against Golden State where he just really took the bull by the horns there. I know that's not necessarily something we should expect, but I do think the points role is really big without Duran here. So I'll use that. I kind of already have talked about that play, so I'll bring it up here in a moment.
For sure. All right. We'll talk about the pick'em stuff if you're ready to move on.
Yeah, for sure. I think we can start this conversation by saying I would love to see a DeJounte Murray fantasy score. I think I heard in the chat that it was like 44 ish. I think that's right where I would expect it to be. Um, he is the guy that what I referred to earlier in the show, where I think he's a great FanDuel DraftKings play. I just think that he is priced in accordingly on Underdog and PrizePicks, and that for that reason I'm probably out on that.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I still think you could take over if you really wanted to on 44 fantasy score. That is the number that it's at. Um, it's not a great number. It's not a great number like he's a great play on FanDuel, but I think it is a good number. I
Hmm.
think on such a
It's a
large
good
slate,
number.
you might not need it. Um, yeah, I don't mind DeJounte stuff. I wouldn't mind to look at Clint Capella stuff if that's adjusted at all to what we're expecting here. 30 fantasy score for Clint Capella.
They
I don't
really
mind
didn't
that. I think
jump
that's pretty
anything up.
solid.
He really doesn't
Yeah.
get. They didn't really jump his numbers like they did everybody else. So, like I said, he's sitting at 21 and a half points, rebounds, assists. Like, I think that Trey Young's usage, whether it be assists, whether it be points scored, I mean, all of that should filter to a little bit of everybody. And considering that he has cleared this 4 out of 5 times last season without Trey, just tells me that you can get pretty behind the spot.
Yeah, for sure. Other side with the Pistons, what do you like over here? I don't think I like much. I mean, the Osar spot, it's something that you can always attack with his rebounds, but they're at 10 and a
Hmm.
half now. They're really starting to get to the point where they're pretty juiced. I don't know. I think it's okay. I just don't think it's great.
Yeah, that's how I feel about also rebounds. So I'll probably just sit on the sideline. But something I will play something I will play today, and members should either hit this now or hit it twice as we provide it later. I'll just give it out for free. I'm playing Isaiah Stewart over 11 points today. In 3 games without Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart's cleared 11 points, and I don't think that stops today.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. The Pistons, or sorry, Hawks also giving up a pretty big amount of points to the center position as well. So
Yep.
good spot for Stewart for sure. All right. Let's keep it moving if you're ready to move on to the next game.
Yeah. Last note: Detroit, huge pace up spot. Atlanta, number 2 in the league.
For sure. All right. Next game up, a little bit of a snoozer compared to what we've been talking about so far through
Hmm.
the show, but Magic and the Nets end up facing off against each other. Currently, the Nets are 3-point favorites at home. Over under set at 218.5. Let's talk about this Orlando team first. We know the Markelle Fultz is still going to be out. Currently have Gary Harris is questionable in this one. What are you thinking here with this Magic team? I think it is actually like a halfway decent spot for them against the Nets, but I don't think anyone necessarily stands out with kind of how their team offense is structured.
Orlando's running so terribly slow. I understand we're talking about this because you have the injuries to Fultz and the injuries to Wendell Carter, but I just can't fall in love with a ton here. I think that Jalen Suggs is okay. I think that Cole Anthony is okay. And I think that Paulo is too overpriced for this spot. So I'll probably just side with staying away in cash. How do you feel about this? I feel like with Nick Claxton back, that kind of takes away our center plays.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely takes away our center plays. I think that Paulo might get a good matchup based on who they line him up against. Like, it could be Dorian Finney-Smith, but DFS could also go on Franz, and then you could have Cam Johnson on Paulo. Like, I think at the end of the day, like this Magic team is going to have to, or sorry, not the Magic. The Nets are going to have to sacrifice putting a poor defender on one of these two guys in Franz or Paulo. If I knew before the game who it was, I'd probably say take that guy, take the guy who's getting the good matchup in DFS. But
Hmm.
sadly, we don't know that ahead of time. So um, I don't know. Paulo's had some pretty good production as of recent. I think I'm fine going there at 7,900. I like Franz too. Um, I don't think you need exposure either one of these guys. I think these are great tournament plays, not necessarily cash game plays though.
It's kind of how it feels like, and I guess I'd be more interested. Well, even then, I'm not really super interested. I know there's injuries in this game, but again, pace of play so slow here. You already have 3 really enticing games that we already talked about. I'd rather take anybody on those games than try to focus in on here. I think these are great. This is a great tournament game to play in the hopes that it stays close and is a little bit faster than expected.
For sure. All right, let's talk about the other side. Let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets. They got Nick Claxton back over the weekend. We didn't really get to talk about it a lot because it was over the weekend. But good first game from him 10 points, 13 rebounds, 4 blocks. The Magic currently allow the third most blocks to the center position, Jared.
Mm.
Claxton, 7,500. I mean, without Ben Simmons, I don't, it kind of goes back to exactly what we talked about with Ben Simmons with the Nets. Like, there's not any rebounders on this team right now. They're going to have someone rebound the ball. If Nick Claxton can, he could be in a really solid spot today.
Nick Claxton looked good, but remember that game was against Washington, so I don't really know
True.
how we should look at this. He also, I don't know if he's going to play 30 minutes. Maybe we have to see that before we take advantage of it. I know the blocks are going to be there, so I'm not going to say that's an anomaly by any means. Um, so we'll see. I think I'm okay with staying away, but I think Claxton's a pretty good tournament play off a Capella or a Stewart or or even a Bam.
Yeah, definitely. What else do we like from this Nets team? Magic, second best team in defensive rating. So tough situation here. All said. I think I'm fine with staying away from everything else from the Nets.
Yeah, I'm probably okay with staying away too. Lonnie Walker got ruled in, so everything kind of just, I think it's just okay.
For sure. Let's move over to pick up stuff if you're ready to.
Yeah, I'll make it simple. I'm out on that game, on this game.
Uh, Man, they don't have it up yet. They will at some point today. I would assume they would at some point today. When Claxton gets a blocks plus steals number, just a blocks number, I'm willing to take it, whatever it is at. Hopefully around like 2 or 2.5, but or no, more like 1.5 or 2, but willing to take that over for sure.
Okay.
All right, anything else here, Jared? If not, let's keep it moving and move on into another fun one.
Yeah, no, I'm ready to move on.
Let's do it. Next game up is going to be the Oklahoma City Thunder facing off against the San Antonio Spurs. Currently, Thunder are 10.5 point favorites, over under set at 238.5 here. Let's start off with this Spurs team to kick things off. We know that Keldon Johnson's going to be out in this one. We know Jeremy Sohan is going to be questionable. Trey Jones is going to be out. So lots of injuries to kick things off. Um, there are guys in good spots here against the Oklahoma City Thunder. I guess the main question is like, can they keep it close, which is the number one concern. Um, what do you think about Wemby to kind of kick things off here?
I was telling somebody that sent me some, some of where they were looking to go today before the show and had Wemby in their personal build. And I just straight up said, like, if you think that Wemby is going to be the reason this game stays close, I think a Thunder player absolutely needs to be in here as well. And in order for things to stay close, I think Victor needs to go for like 60, 70 fantasy points. And I just don't know. There's a great storyline here between Chet and between Victor. They get to face off against each other. Man, I don't know. We have not seen Victor hit 60. I know that he can. Or sorry, he's done it once exactly. He can. I just don't know if this is the spot that I would trust it to be in. I think that the spread being where it was at 9.5 before the news broke. It's telling me that Keldon Johnson, well, I mean, they probably already baked some of this in, but, two of those key pieces here are out is only a 1 point movement. I don't know. I think the Thunder could really, really run away with this one. So I would say Victor Wembanyama is a really, really good tournament play, but you won't find us rostering him in cash games today.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think really good tournament play, not necessarily cash viable. I'm interested to hear the Jeremy Sohan stuff. We saw last year they were very willing to go to Devonte Graham, and he kind of lit things up. So
Mm-hmm.
he could definitely fill in as that backup point guard with Trey Jones out, and that could be massive. I think Devin Vassell could take a step forward here and actually look
Sure.
pretty solid. Malachi Branham is going to start for Keldon Johnson most likely. I don't think that's a bad spot to go to. Like I definitely see ways to get involved on the San Antonio side. You kind of have to be worried about blowout though, and that's the main concerning thing.
Yeah, I mean, would anybody that would be in this 8-man, 9-man rotation be blowout proof? I think that,
Devontae would.
yeah, Devontae would. I would say that, man, this is a gross play, but a Jetty is potentially going to play in blow up time. But
Yeah.
again, that's a little bit too far down the line, I think, for cash. But I think Devontae is interesting.
Yeah, I think Devontae's interesting. I think Malachi could potentially see that as well. That blowout time. Maybe not. I don't know. It's kind of 50-50 there. Still,
Yeah.
regardless, I think there certainly are pieces here that are cheap that you can get exposure to. Let's talk about the other side. Let's talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder because they're going to be fully healthy. But there's a couple big spots here. Number one, Shea's going to walk into a great matchup.
Yep.
Uh, while the Jeremy Sohan experience has worked for this San Antonio team, it has not worked in terms of the defense.
Mm-hmm.
It's worked on the offensive side a lot, not on defense. They've been really struggling. Jeremy Sohan could be out, and that could mean that Devonte Graham being on Shea could be a lot of points for Shea tonight. So, what do you think about SGA? And they put out a taco for him. I know you kind of already graded it and everything, did your analysis, but talk about it on the show.
Yeah, I mean it's a streamer love it matchup. There's like two problems that exist in that. So I'll just get the good news out of the way. It's an amazing spot. I think he does really well. The bad news here, I think, on FanDuel and DraftKings, you really worry about. Well, I'm gonna just kind of cross over and say both things at the same time. But blowout is everything, and if you can't hit it, these price tags, he's gonna get outscored point per dollar by Tyrese Maxey and DeJounte Murray. That's just what it is.
Hmm.
I think that Tyrese Maxey actually has the ability to outscore Shea Point, or not be just straight up tonight if things get out of hand. And then, I think that, when you're talking about the taco and the taco analysis stuff, only reason I didn't rate it higher than an 8 is because this thing could just get absolutely out of hand and he finishes with 24, 25 points.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Spurs are allowing the most points in the NBA right now. They have the second
Yep.
worst defensive rating behind the Hornets.
It's a really,
A
really
lot of bad
fast
stuff
game.
here. Yeah, yeah, for sure. It could get out of hand really quick. So I don't know. Should be interesting. I'm excited to watch the game. I'm not excited to necessarily play DFS.
It'll be a
And
great
kind of like
first
you,
half.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Kind of like you said, like say all the points we just made apply to Prize Picks. I don't think there's anything that stands out here on the board. I think you have better options elsewhere. Point per dollar wise, it just makes more sense to go to other spots. So,
Hmm.
um, I don't know. I'm sure there's numbers here that like we can get behind. Kind of like you said, if you're playing stuff from this game, when you were talking about the person you referred to when it came to DFS, if you're playing pick'em options from this game, you better be playing both sides. You better be playing San
Yeah,
Antonio pieces and Thunder pieces because that's going to hinge on whether your slip cashes or not. If both sides can do well enough to keep this game relatively close. And
that's
again,
right.
I think OKC can win by 10. They just have the opportunity to win by like 30 tonight too, and that's where
Yeah.
the concern lies.
The DraftKings conversation between Halliburton and Maxey is at least intriguing. It's still a $1,400 difference, but you get Shea under 10.5 here. So I think that that's at least noteworthy. I'll still side with, Maxey under 9K is kind of ridiculous on that site. So, uh, but yeah, I mean, in tournaments, I think this is a fantastic game stack, and you just have to pray and hope that things stay within 15, which I think,
For sure.
there's a possibility. Sure, there always is, but this could get like 25 to 35 really fast.
Yeah, without a doubt. All right. Anything else in this game? If not, let's keep it moving and move on into the next one.
The only other thing I wanted to just hint at here, again, very dependent on this one staying close, but we have seen Chet Holmgren be a little bit more friendly with the assists, and the assist line sits at 2. So I think that if it
What?
game stays close, I know it's weird. I don't really understand it either, but my thought process, two things. Number one, he's going to go up against Victor probably on the defensive end, and probably not always going to shoot in that matchup, right? So he'll probably be able to get somebody open in that regard. Um, I think that the assists for Chet are pretty solid tonight. And then number two, he came out and a little bit of a player speak here said that a great scorer doesn't mean you go 30 for 35, and he's more focused on winning basketball games. So
Hmm.
he's going to take open shots if he has them, right? But I think that
Yeah,
the assist things should be up in the 4 or 5 range for him.
I like it. You're keyed in, man. I love it. I will say he's not going to guard Victor. He's going to have to guard Zach Collins because
Okay, I think
they
there will
they
still be opportunities where that'll happen.
yeah, it'll definitely happen throughout the game. I'm just saying, like, primary defender is going to be Zach Collins because they don't have the size to put on Zach Collins if they end up guarding Chet with, like, they need Jalen Williams to end up guarding uh, Victor most likely, and he's the better defender anyway.
Sure.
Okay, let's keep it moving. Let's move on into this next game. It is going to be the Mavericks facing off against the Pelicans. Currently, we have the Pelicans as 3.5 point dogs at home. Over under is set at 239.5. Big game, big total. Not a lot of injuries on this Dallas side. We know that Maxi Kleber is not going to play this one. But outside of that, it's not much. We saw this game just play out over the weekend. Was a pretty entertaining game. We did see Luca end up falling short, but we saw some other guys do really well. What do you like from this Dallas team?
I really like what I think that you can like, yeah, on any other slate. I would think Luca would be in a really really strong spot here, but I think that that he has no CJ McCollum to guard him, no Jose Alvarado. Like I think that and Herbert Jones is dealing with the leg injury still, so I do like the Luca spot. I think the Kyrie spot's actually really solid too. I think that both those guys are great tournament plays, and that's honestly probably all that they are.
I really like the Kyrie spot. I like the Kyrie spot a little bit more than just a tournament play. I think it's pretty
Okay.
fringe. I don't think you can afford it
I
today,
mean,
which
the
is
price tag
unfortunate.
is pretty nuts in terms of being low.
Yeah, yeah. I thought you were going to say on the other side. I agree. It's way too low right now at 86. He'll be a 9K player, mid 9K player by next week. Here's the thing about how this Pelicans defense operates, especially against a Mavericks team where Luka's a pretty big point guard in general. They're able to throw multiple defenders at him, like Brandon Ingram, like Herb Jones, if he's good to go. Um, they're also going to have Najee Marshall back this game, correct? Like they
Yeah,
have him
that's
set.
what they should be. He doesn't have a designation set yet for today. He
That's
played, I believe, in the last game.
He did played 13 minutes. That's a massive 13 minutes, man. That Najee Marshall is known for his defense, and uh, he that's a really incredible defender to be able to bring out there for 13 minutes to kind of lock up Luca for those 13. And we saw exactly that happen. They're able to throw everyone at Luca, and for Kyrie, you're only able to really throw a guy like Jordan Hawkins at him, and Kyrie can thrive in that matchup. We just saw it happen. So
Hmm.
I really like the Kyrie spot. I'm willing to go back to that. He repeats that performance and does really well here. So all over the Kyrie stuff, and that's about it. I don't think there's much else that I really like in this on this side of the ball.
Yeah, we're in an intriguing spot where I think there's 3 or 4 games today that have already, like these two teams already played on the other opponent's court, so we have a good idea of what to expect in terms of that. So,
Hmm.
um, not like baseball, where I think things, can be a little bit different. I would assume that we can take advantage of the data that we have.
For sure. Let's talk about the other side. Let's talk about this Pelicans team. I think there are definitely some pieces that could end up performing well here. I don't think I'm willing to take a bet on anything. If there's anything that stands out to you, go for it. But we saw Zion fall short. We
Hmm.
saw Ingram fall short. I I always want to trust in the Joe Val stuff, man. But the 20 minutes that he got just blows my mind, considering that they don't even have the backup center to really take over for him. Um, he could thrive in this matchup. It's just the minutes are so iffy that I can never trust it.
Right. Well, they also lost Larry Nance in the last game too, so I wouldn't be surprised to see ownership on Jonas uh, give me Capella as the safer option.
That was going to be my next question. Is like Joe Val or Capella? I'll take Capella. They've
Oh
shown they're
yeah,
willing to go
yeah.
small ball so often,
Hmm.
and especially against a Mavericks team that can also go really small ball without Derek Lively. I just think it's a no. I'd rather not play centers in this game. All right, let's move over to pick'em stuff. Talk about some of that. I will start out with the Kyrie number because I think that's the spot that I'm the most bullish on today. 31.5 points and assists, 42.5 fantasy score. I really like that fantasy score number. I think that's really solid. So I'll lean with that. What are you going with?
I like points assists. 31.5 is fine. I think that that's as far as I'll go here, and yeah, that's kind of it. I think that Luca numbers are going to be sky high, and I think that while they can do well, it's a spot where I'm probably just going to end up being more bullish on Kyrie than anything else.
For sure. Anything else here? If not, we can keep it moving. Move on to this next game.
I mean, the Pelicans are just very frustrating for DFS in general.
Oh my
I
gosh.
think getting Marshall back here is going to help our um, turn this team into not as cash viable on such a large slate.
For sure. All right, let's talk about this next game, which is going to be the Portland Trailblazers facing off against the Utah Jazz. Currently, Jazz come in as 6.5 point favorites at home, over unders at 231.5. We have the usual suspects when it comes to injuries. Malcolm Brogdon still out, Scoot, Simons, and Williams all out as well. For this Jazz team, they look pretty healthy. Walker Kessler still injured, but John Collins probable as of right now with an ankle injury. Seems like he's going to be fine to play. Let's talk about this Trailblazers team first. There are some guys that are going to be able to take advantage of a fast-paced good matchup. Specifically, I really like Shaden Sharp in this one. We've seen this Utah Jazz team just fall really short against shooting guards in general.
Hmm.
I think Shaden Sharp can get going. I think Jeremy Grant has a chance to get going here. I really do think that Aiton's probably one of your better center candidates, just completely outsizing John Collins in this one. What
Yep.
do you like from this Portland team, though?
I think you have to roster somebody on Portland. Just too many injuries, and I think that it does start with what you want to do between Shaden Sharp and Skylar Mays. I think both are fine. They're at the same price tag. We've seen 3-point shooting against Utah be a thing, and we've seen just points given up be a thing too.
Yeah.
Utah is playing at one of the fastest paces. Portland definitely on the lower end, the bottom half of the league, so they're going to get a pace up spot here. Just think that there's too many bodies down for Portland in this spot, and I know it's a tough environment to play in, but I think that these are two young guys, specifically in Sharp and Mays, that I'm not concerned with their fantasy output. I think you have to roster at least one of them, and I think you can make an argument that you should be playing two Portland guys in cash. And I think when you talk about Capella versus Ayton, I would side with Ayton in this spot.
Yeah, me too, man. I really like the 8 spot. I know the last few games have been struggles, but got to remember the guys who he's going up against. With the Lakers, it's against, Anthony Davis, incredibly tough defender. When it comes to the Kings, it's just a slow pace that they run at. When it comes to Memphis, it's back-to-back games against Memphis. They're usually able to game plan a little bit better. The 40 FanDuel point DeAndre Ayton is not gone. He's still there. It's just
Mm-hmm.
a couple of tough matchups, and I think he gets back and going against a very small Utah Jazz team. Um, Also, really like Shannon Sharp, like I said. So I like those two. That's what I would roll with here. I think you can definitely go Skylar Mays as well, but lots of good options here. What else do you like from this Portland team? And if it's nothing else, then move over to Utah.
Where does I think we should rank 4 players because I kind of want to leave Matisse out of this potentially. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, but I want to just talk about the 4 players of Mays, Sharp, Ayton, and Grant. How do you rank those?
Think Ayton first, Sharp second, Grant third, Skylar Mays fourth.
You're a little
People
bit
are
down
probably
on
going to be
Mays, huh?
disappointed.
Yeah,
Yeah, people
I
are going to
like
be
Mays.
disappointed in my Skylar Mays stuff. I know,
Yeah,
but I think you've lost all the value on him, and I think you got
maybe.
2 pretty good matchups for him. I mean, he's at 6,800 now, man. Like you're not. The juice is gone. The squeeze is there's nothing left to squeeze out of that price tag for him.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but I think that he and Shaden Sharp will finish very similarly tonight. I think 35 is fully in play there. It just might not be the best point per dollar play when comparing to like Lowry or Maxey or DeJounte.
For sure. Yeah, I don't know. I'm down. It's not that I'm down on Mays either. Like I think a good performance is to come. I think point per dollar wise, it's a little bit tough, and I think at the end of the day, you have a guy in Jeremy Grant that's the leading scorer of this team. I think the leader of this team when it all comes down to it. Like time on the team wise and just everything that he brings to the table. Without Brogdon or any of those guys, he's kind of like the leader of this team. So that's
Yeah.
why I kind of have him ranked a little bit higher.
Well, on DraftKings, it's a completely different story. I think Mays is a lot more of a value on the team. Maybe not
That's
on the
true.
slate, but he's 1,000 plus cheaper than everybody that's starting.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about the other side. Let's talk about the Utah Jazz a little bit. Their real struggle has been on the interior, or the Portland Trailblazers' real struggle has been on the interior. I'm just not sure the Jazz have the weapons to take that away from them, like to actually take advantage of that deficiency that the Trailblazers have. Like Collins, I just don't think he's big enough against Aiden, to be honest with you. Like he's too much of
Mm-hmm.
a traditional four. Laurie's too much of an outside guy at this point, and has Jeremy Grant defense on him. I don't know, man. Like I guess like Jordan Clarkson and Keontae George can get going, but um I'm not really interested in this side that much, which is kind of a crazy thing to say because I would have said that I was a lot more interested if you gave me this game earlier on in the year.
Not a huge like this is an awesome Walker Kessler spot, obviously, but we can't do anything
Yeah,
about that now.
seriously.
Um, I probably just fine with staying away. Collins is probable. If anything were to go backwards on that, you're just playing Kelly Olynyk at that point, or is it scarier than you think?
Um, Scarier than you think. I think the only thing that's even playable on this team is Keontae George, who continues to be a
Yeah,
stud.
yeah.
What a crazy some crazy assist numbers coming from him. He is a fantastic passer right now, and um, I think his price tag is going to catch up to him eventually, but it's not there yet.
I think that is where you save some money on FanDuel. Only problem is that it takes up an automatic shooting guard spot. So,
Yeah.
especially when we have Steph Curry ruled out, which we'll get to soon.
Yep, for sure. Um, Pick'em stuff. What do we want to move on there? Do we have anything else here?
No, I don't think you need to play Utah in cash today, but I do think that you should heavily consider two Portland players, if not at least one.
I would agree. Definitely helps fill out some of those spots for sure. Let's move over to Pick'em. I think the only thing I like here, well, from the Utah side, the only thing I like, Keontae George assists. I think he's going to continue just slamming this number. He is such a great passer that they brought him into the starting lineup to pass, and I think he's recognized his role very quickly on this team, and that's helped
Mhm.
him a ton.
Yeah, I think that's a fine number. I'm not super interested in anything else from Utah. So I'll probably just stay away from that spot. And on the Portland side, I do like Skylar Mays, 27.5 points, rebounds, assists. Like maybe that doesn't hit value necessarily, or gives him, you know, gets you to 35 fantasy points. But I think I do like that number there. And I also think that you can take a buy low spot potentially on DeAndre Ayton. I don't think he should be at 15.5 points with the amount of shots that are needed to be taken. And I think 11.5 rebounds is firmly in play.
We got a question from the chat. What do you think about Jordan Clarkson today?
I just don't really see the need to go there on such a guard heavy slate, but I think he's
Okay.
okay in tournaments.
He needs, John brings up a good
He needs
point.
to
He's
score
41.
30 real life points.
He needs 41 to hit 6x. He's done in the last two games. I think when it comes to injuries, though, today, you just have guys that are filling up point guard and shooting guard slots that you need a lot more than what you need from Jordan Clarkson today. And at least that's my 2 cents on it. I think the spot's just fine. I just think one, you can't really spend 6,900 on a guy like that today,
Yeah.
and two, you just have better options when it comes to
You would
injuries and
also
stuff.
have to take Mays or Sharp in cash. Tournaments, I think that that's okay, but goes back to the other point. Like if you're doing anything in tournaments today, I think that I shouldn't say that because it doesn't apply to every game, but this game it does. If this game, you would need to have one of the Portland guys to keep things close.
For sure. All right. Anything else here? If not, let's move on into this next game.
No, I think that's it. We should move on. Interesting game coming up here.
Yeah, very. Clippers facing off against the Denver Nuggets. Currently, Nuggets are 4.5 point favorites. Over under is at 225. Let's start with this Clippers team. They have looked pretty abysmal with James Harden in the lineup. When James Harden plays minutes, their plus minus is tanked. And when he doesn't play minutes, their plus minus goes up. Sadly, you've got to play him 30 because he's a main part to this team right now. You're going up against a credibly tough Denver defense that I will always back when they're coming off of a loss. I think Clippers fall really short here. I think Denver ends up winning this. I think minus 4.5 is not where this number should be. It feels almost a little trappy, which scares me. But
Mm.
I think the Clippers get stunted on here. I'm not interested in any DFS plays from this Clippers team. I just don't think that anyone jumps out.
It would be pure NBA fashion, Josh, to because I came out on the show last week and said the Mavs are going to stop the Clippers. It would just be pure NBA madness to see this game stay close and Denver not be able to take care of business at home with the in-season tournament stuff going too.
Yeah,
I don't believe in the number. I think this is the wrong number. I think that they just don't figure it out. And maybe in a month or two, this game is different. But right now, the Clippers are giving us no reason to bet on them.
yeah, without a doubt. Let's talk about this Denver side. Death, taxes, and betting on Nikola Jokic after a loss feel like the only guarantees in life. He comes out with such a fire, and obviously made me look like such an idiot. I said the thing about without Jamal Murray, he'd be more of a passer because he's just been scoring like a madman. 30 points plus in 3 straight games, 35 points plus in 3 straight games. Looks absolutely amazing right now.
Mm-hmm.
I will say against some teams that are a little bit worse against the center position, but the Rockets have been a top 5 defense against the center position. So that's where I kind of expected the Buck to stop, and it did not. 36, 21, and 11 is quite a stat line, man. Just to lose 107 to 104 in that game too. I really like the Nikola Jokic play. I don't think you get the money to play it today, but like man, is it a really really good play where he can go off for 70 or 80 after a really disappointing loss.
It's a really, really fun game or a really fun tournament play. I like it a lot. So, yeah, no issues there. I think that that's completely fine. I would say that you're just playing the fantasy point number here because he will be the reason this game blows out.
Yeah, for sure. That's the one concerning thing, right? Is that like if this game does blow out, you come up really short, and that's concerning.
Do
I
you
wouldn't
though?
mind going to
Like, I
Reggie
think he's the
Jackson.
reason. I think he's the reason.
Yeah, I
Like,
guess, but like he still comes up short in DFS. Like even
mm,
if he's the reason, how much is he the reason? Like what can you reasonably say Nikola Jokic will get in 3 quarters if this ends up being closer to a blowout?
still think he has 60 upside in 3 quarters.
Is 60 enough if he doesn't play the last
Well,
12
I
minutes of the game?
mean, no, but how
That's
many
my point.
centers can get you 60 today, Joel?
I don't think there's a lot of centers that can get you 60. I think there's a lot of centers that point per dollar can get you that same exact production, which because that's not even 5x. If he gets you 60
Yeah,
FanDuel points, that's not 5x.
yeah. I mean, I guess maybe my point was not playing it in cash, but playing it on Underdog and Prize Picks.
Yeah, I can get behind that depending on where numbers are at. I haven't looked. Um, I'd be really interested to see if you had to run it back with someone, who would it be on the other side? If you, because that's what you would need to do in tournaments. If you wanted to play Jokic, you'd have to run it back with someone.
Paul George.
Yeah, I can get behind Paul George. I definitely don't mind that. Um, I think that's the only guy. Maybe Kawhi, but I don't know. I don't feel great
Mm,
about it.
I don't know. I don't not super on board with the Kawhi stuff. I think either Westbrook or Paul George for my pick.
Yeah. I will also say that, like, on one hand, I understand the correlation. Don't get me wrong. But, there's not a lot of worlds where this ends up being like a 125 to 127 type matchup, right? So, like, ideally, the way the Clippers keep it close is by stopping Nikola Jokic. That kind of goes against your whole correlation thing. Like, I
Sure.
don't know. It's worth a shot in tournaments if you're making multiple lineups, but it's just really tough to make it make sense from a basketball sense when it's all said and done.
Look, we're
Um,
here to give you fantasy advice for FanDuel, DraftKings, Underdog, Prize Picks. Um, I can say that I am not. Uh, I would rather play the games than try to bet against Vegas, but I just don't understand how it's 4.5 points to Denver at home here. I just
yeah,
don't get it.
I'm right there with you. Which we've talked about it. We do a good job of recognizing when the trappy spots feel like trappy spots. This one certainly feels like it. Sometimes sometimes it's easier to just say, I know what I know, and I know that that's a wrong number, and that's
Hmm.
I'll bet on it. And if I lose, I lose. Like that's just part of sports betting at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Um, okay. I think we've gone on a little bit of a tangent, but I think we're good. Let's talk about pick'em options here because Nikola Jokic is all the way up at 54 and a half PRA, Jared. Hasn't even covered that in all three of these games that he's
Yeah.
been without Jamal. Now, I think the number that you feel a little bit more comfortable with is 63 fantasy score, where you get those blocks, you get those steals as well, and those factor into things and end up making that number a little bit more feasible and kind of fits in line with what you said. If this ends up being a blowout 3 quarters in, he could hit 63. I could see that happening.
Again, the reason would be that he is the reason that this game blows out. I think maybe I'm leaning more towards them up by 20 and he still gets some run in the fourth to close it out just a little bit. Like if they get taken out at the 3 or 4 minute mark at that final media timeout, then I think that there's enough juice there. Again, that's us predicting that things are way, way different than what Vegas says. If the game is within 4 points, then he is hitting 75, 80 fantasy points.
For sure. All right. Let's talk about the. I don't think there's anything that you want from the Clippers side. Is there anything else you want from this Nuggets side, though?
Not really. Other than that,
Yeah, I can get behind that. I think that's perfectly fine. All right. Anything else in this game? If not, we'll move on to the second to last game where we get to talk about some Steph Curry news.
uh, I just don't think it's worth putting any money on, on a Clippers team that we know just can't get it together. One of the worst plus minuses in the last 5+ years with any starting group. Through, again, small sample size, but it's enough to know that it's just terrible. I just don't think you can play that in Denver in this situation.
For sure. All right, let's move on into the next game, which is going to be the Timberwolves facing off against the Golden State Warriors. Currently, we have the Timberwolves at 2.5-point favorites. Over under set at 217. I will say that when I just refreshed my page to make sure I got the updated odds for the Steph Curry stuff. Before I had updated, the Warriors were 2.5-point favorites. Now they're 2.5-point dogs. If
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't tell you how important Steph Curry is to this team, a 5-point swing in the NBA is massive, man. I
Yep.
mean, that is a huge swing. So we kind of talked about this before. I don't know if we've talked about it this season that much, but when you see star players ruled out, typically it's around a 3 to 1 point swing most of the time. Like they've already kind of baked in a little bit that he's questionable. They're usually leaning one side or the other based on their reports. And then once the news finally comes out, they do the full swing of which way it's going to lean. To swing 5 points is ridiculous. And
Yeah.
Curry's really been the leader of this team, man. I mean, they need to get him some help out there if they plan on contending this year. If not, they need to blow it up because the situation in Golden State does not look pretty right now.
No, I agree. I mean, it, it doesn't look good. I think that it's not a normal situation that we would typically see in regards to, in-season tournament stuff. I guess it does. Maybe Golden State's eyes are on. We just lost to the same team a couple days ago. Maybe we're looking forward with an older team just to kind of play the long game. It's kind of what this tells me here. I think that you still have two routes. Well, here's the conundrum: do you want to play Golden State with 35 minutes without Steph Curry against the best defense in the NBA? I think the answer is probably still yes in some capacity.
Yeah, I think you have to for the
I
value
think
that
you
you
have
get with
to.
some of these
And you need
guys.
at least one piece, if not two.
Yeah. It's really just a question of who, which I think is a struggle today to we haven't done any of the research. We got this news after the first game, so haven't
Hmm.
been able to dive into what exactly this means for the team. But Klay Thompson's shooting like shit. Andrew Wiggins looks the worst he's ever been. Draymond Green is completely a lot of his production is taken off by the fact that he loses his main scorer as a playmaker in this offense. I'm not playing Chris Paul because the point guard position's already filled. Like you
uh,
start dwindling down the ideas here, and like who exactly do you go to? It's almost like you're forced into a box to play a wing, and that means Kaminga or Wiggins, honestly. And oof, what a tough day! What a tough day, man.
yeah, Lowry is point guard only. DeJounte, you can slide to shooting guard. Maxi is point guard only. So yeah, you're right. Um,
Yeah,
my go-to right when we thought about this was going to be Draymond, just because he will have to. They're outsized in this matchup tremendously, and he's just going to have to play as many minutes as possible. Um, Gets the block, steals, peripherals. His price tag's a little bit too low still, potentially. I say that it's right around where it should be, but it feels like there's a little bit more left there. Not playing Klay Thompson. He hasn't hit 30 fantasy points all season, which is alarming. Um,
that's tough.
Wiggins, I don't think. I mean, this is the Wiggins spot, isn't it? I mean, like, I guess
It should be.
the question I have for you is like, who does McDaniel's get today?
Uh God, I'm trying to think through it.
By the way, Wiggins hasn't cleared 30 either. He's only cleared
It
25 once.
it might end up being Draymond potentially. I because he might just guard on ball. Um, I don't know. I don't know who he's going to get. It could be a mixture of everyone, and that makes things even more tough. I
Like,
think I'm
look, I
leaning with the
think.
back. I think I'm leaning with
Sorry,
the
yeah,
backup when it's all said and done. Like I,
yeah.
I think that's where I feel more comfortable rather than paying 6K for Draymond or trying to stomach a Andrew Wiggins or Klay Thompson performance. I'm playing a Kaminga, a Moses Moody, a Gary Payton, one of those guys. And I think Kuminga honestly fits the build the best out of anyone.
Would agree there. Someone's going to slide into the starting lineup, obviously. We don't necessarily have time to wait around and see who that is. But I think that you just playing it and you're okay with Kuminga, Moody, or Peyton regardless, just because of how much usage needs to be there.
Isn't it Chris Paul that slides up most likely? Like
Well,
that's what we
sure.
would assume.
Right. I would assume that. And that's the way that they probably will take this. It just gives more opportunity for any bench score.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
what happens when things go wrong? Now it's a 2.5 point spread. Are we just blindly trusting this game stays close? Because I don't know if it's that simple.
Oh, I think it is again fishy line to put it at 2.5. I think it's a massive blowout. I think I already had Minnesota winning the first game. I've been betting on Minnesota pretty consistently this season. I think that's just a very good basketball team when it's all said and done. But you lose Steph to this Golden State Warriors team, and I think this team is going to look pretty bad tonight. So
Yeah.
I already think it's going to be pretty massive.
Yeah. So I think you do have to play somebody. I think the field goes to Klay Thompson and Chris Paul. And number one, like I said, Klay has not hit 30 once this season. If he does today, cool. It's 5.5x. You're also wasting a shooting guard spot.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and number two, if you play Chris Paul over any of the 2 point guard, like the 3 or 4 point guards we talked about already, you're just losing in cash today.
I would tend to agree. I would tend to agree for sure. And also, people will think that Chris Paul just like takes over like as
Yeah,
much
he's
ball
not going
handling
for
as
50 against the best defense in the
no.
NBA.
Well, one, it's the best defense in the NBA, but two, like whenever Curry is out, Draymond Green already fills in as the playmaker. So, like, I'm not saying that Chris Paul loses his playmaking abilities at all, but I think they're not nearly what you will expect them to be. I think they will honestly be pretty split. And Chris Paul off ball offense is atrocious right now. So it's a bad situation here.
Yeah, last thing I'll say, and I'm dating myself here by saying it. Look, I'm 31. That's not too old in a lot of people's eyes, but in the NBA, I would be one of the youngest players on the Warriors. And if
Gross.
you had a spot
Gross.
where
Oh man.
where Steph Curry is out, this team just looks decrepit from an age
Yeah.
standpoint. I just don't know how
Yeah.
they compete with Anthony Edwards tonight.
For sure. Definitely gonna be a tough one for sure. All right. Pick'em stuff. Well, I guess talk about the Minnesota side. I'm not interested in this team. I think that, there's definitely spots to attack them, but when they're fully healthy like this, it's not one of those spots. And I'm just perfectly fine staying away from Minnesota today.
Yep. I'll give my spiel on a play. Obviously, I think again, like these last couple of games on the slate are really iffy. The last two specifically in terms of spread. Um, so Vegas has things staying close. We disagree, but we still have to keep in mind that that's a reason that they are still in business. So
Yeah.
um, let's move on to pick them. But again, I think the craziest bet on a FanDuel DraftKings tournament starter would be to pay up for Anthony Edwards and Nikola Jokic and praying that Vegas is correct and these games stay close because both guys have 60 fantasy point upside here.
Yeah, I can get behind it. All right. On the prize picks side and just the pick'em side in general, man, you have Wiggins at 20.5 points, rebounds, and assists. You've got Chris Paul at 26.5 points, rebounds, and assists. You got Draymond at 22, Clay at 27.5. Like I don't know. I think overall all these guys are in pretty iffy spots. I already mentioned all the blowout concerns. I'll stay away from Warrior stuff, and I'm just not interested in Minnesota stuff either.
I'm completely off on the Warriors stuff. I will say the one play that I'm interested in, which I brought up on X this morning, was the Anthony Edwards rebounds assist line. It is all the way up now. Oh no, it's still there. Never mind. It's at 10.5, Josh. And I think that he's just been ultra aggressive when it comes to a variety of things, and he's got shooting around him that he's able to get assists, and he's not just relied on as this point scorer, which again, still averaging like north of 26 points per game, especially over this last stretch. So I think 10.5 rebounds, assists is a fantastic line.
I can get behind that. That's perfectly fine. All right. Let's move on into this last game, Jared. It is going to be the Memphis Grizzlies facing off against the Los Angeles Lakers. Currently, the Lakers come in at 5.5 point favorites. Over under is at 225. This Lakers team has a real chance to get a big step up on the rest of the group if they end up
Hmm.
getting this win, because they already got their win against the Suns. That was kind of like the big other opponent.
Yeah.
I don't know if Portland has played themselves out of it yet. I don't know what Memphis's record is either, but either way, like a huge win for the Lakers if they can get this job done here. Currently, we don't know the status of LeBron James. He is questionable for this one. It's really a question for this Lakers team. Like, how long are you willing to wait on injury news? How much are you willing to move around your lineup to make sure you have pieces to pivot if you wanted to? It's tough, man. I don't know how you do it if you do. I think he plays. I think he plays because it's in season tournament. He wants
Hmm.
to add a little bit more to the legacy, and they want to get out of this group play before and get into the rest of it.
Well, there's two major reasons here. Well, you can add a third and say that he took a day off to have a day off, and they're playing at home. I guess there are a bunch of other reasons. The in-season tournament is the main thing. I don't know the national TV game. I would assume it's Minnesota Golden State, or even Denver Clippers, because those two games probably are a little bit more friendly for TV. Um, because Memphis is a small market. So anyway, I think that the other major reason here, outside of just the in-season tournament stuff alone, is the fact that he gets this revenge spot against Memphis. Man, like how much more could you ask for?
Revenge fought against Memphis for what?
They got they Memphis completely embarrassed the Lakers last year.
When?
Am I wrong?
In the playoffs, it was the Nuggets that embarrassed us.
I mean, they you guys had that series against Memphis. I know Dylan Brooks isn't on the team anymore, but like that's still a thing.
I'm confused about what you mean.
Okay. Well, either way, it's still going to be a in-season tournament stuff, and I think that he's going to play with
Yeah,
one game missed. Like it's, I don't think you need to go out of your way to focus on anything regarding that.
I think that you're definitely in a spot where I think he's more likely to play than he is to not play. But it makes me scratch my head at the spread, because I think -5.5 is actually pretty appropriate for a non-LeBron team facing off against the Grizzlies.
I shouldn't say embarrassed. I should say I think that there's just still some like yeah, he got the
Bad
win,
blood.
but like there's definitely bad blood. It was the entire season last year, if you remember back at
Yeah,
the regular season. So
for
there's
sure.
stuff that'll just get him to play this one.
I would agree. Let's talk about. I think he plays this one. If he does play this one, you don't play anyone. If he doesn't play this one, though, it is a pretty massive spot for Anthony Davis here. I mean, we saw him. I don't know if you say come up short necessarily against Portland. I mean, it was a good performance, but I guess I expected a little bit more than 60. Um, we saw Cam Reddish file into the starting lineup, and his performance was really solid with 40 FanDuel points. We definitely saw some guys play really well against Portland. Who do you like here if LeBron were to be out?
If LeBron were to be out, I think it's Cam Reddish time again. Um,
So do I.
so there's that. But can you wait to play Cam Reddish at 5,400 when there are so many other plays in this range? I
I think
don't
at small
know.
forward you can
But if
potentially.
LeBron gets ruled in, then you're just a shit out of luck because it feels
Do
like
you
you're probably
potentially
gonna get.
pivot onto Golden State stuff?
Oh man, I would feel much better about just playing Kaminga.
Yeah. Okay, I can get behind that. That's fine. I was just curious. It's more of
Yeah,
a
it
just a
puts
posing a
yourself in a
question.
really iffy spot
Yeah, for
situationally.
sure. Definitely. Talk about the other stuff. Let's talk about Memphis a little bit. We are waiting for some news here too, because Xavier Tillman could be back tonight from his injury recovery. He would replace Bismack in the starting lineup, most likely. Um, if it wasn't a point guard loaded slate, I would be saying you should be playing Jacob Gilliard, because he's been pretty impressive to start out his role as a starter at the point guard position. But again, we just don't know, or we do know. We know that there are too many good point guards on this slate to
Yeah.
start a 4,900 guys. So most likely just end up elsewhere, and that's all I'm really interested from this Memphis team. I don't think I can get behind any of the big priced guys.
Yeah, everything's just they've just had so many injuries for so long that things have gotten out of control here. Now you get potentially some guys back and also no designation for Zaire Williams. Just doesn't feel like you have to force this.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. All right, Jared. Pick 'em stuff. What do you like here? I don't like anything. I think you need to wait and see for both injuries anyway before you take anything.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm not on Memphis at all. And then on the Lakers side, I just don't think that with LeBron coming back, I think Davis can have a fine game, but you're betting on Davis inflated numbers already as it is a little bit.
For sure. For sure. The TNT game is the Nuggets and the Clippers, by the way. I know we
Oof.
were asking
Well,
about
they're
that
gonna
earlier.
have a really fun 2.5 quarters.
Yeah, seriously. At least for our sake, we hope so. First TNT game is the Thunder and Spurs because of the Chet and
Yeah, they're also
Wemby
gonna have a
stuff.
fun 2.5 quarters.
Yeah, it could be some pretty uninteresting broadcast tonight. All right, Jared, let's get out of here. We've gone for an hour and a half. It's been really fun breaking down this 10 game slate. Give me your final thoughts. How do members win all the money tonight?
The 7 p.m. window is loaded, and I also think that there are key pieces for Portland and potentially for San Antonio. And you got to keep an eye on at least one Golden State play. Like I think that there are just a lot of really interesting priority spots, and maybe my hot take, Josh, is that if I'm wrong on this, then we're wrong. I think we both agree that Minnesota potentially just runs away with everything, and just the way things are set up on FanDuel and DraftKings, you are not screwed necessarily is probably not the right word, but I think the field has a lot of interest in CP3 and Clay Thompson and potentially pulling the trigger on Wiggins. I just can't stomach that in cash today with all the injuries on this slate. So we'll take the Kaminga route and we'll run with it. And, you know, this is what you get for getting the info a couple hours early on the show.
Yeah, for sure. That's why we do the show early, give you guys a little bit of a glimpse of what we're thinking. But at the end of the day, members get all the good value of getting all that up to lock stuff. So if you want to be a member, you can look at the link in either Jared or I's bio, sign up for just $1. And yeah, it's gonna be a fun one, man. I think, it's you need to put on the blinders a little bit today. You need to remember that, like, yeah, we're going to get some injury news from these late games. Don't let it distract you from all the good stuff that we have in the early window, where you have some of the best pace games, you have some of the best total games, you have some of the
Mm-hmm.
best matchup games. Like, there are some really good spots here that, like, you can't ignore. And if you get distracted by some of that late game, late slate stuff, then it could end up ruining your night. So something to keep in mind. All right, let's get out of here, Jared. Thank you all for listening. And as always, my name is Joshua Riemer. Good night and good skill.